Hello and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, March 27th, 2018. As always, we are coming live from the W4CY studios here in West Palm Beach, and I hope everyone has had an amazing week so far. I'm knocking over all my papers already. It has been a crazy day. I can't even get into my computer right now. So luckily I have some of the statistics for you for tonight's show and stuff like that. And, I can talk. So I think it's going to work out well anyways. But this weekend, actually we had a softball tournament. I had, our team went 2-2. We made it to 4 games. You get a 3-game guarantee minimum and stuff. And, my hitting's been doing really well lately. I know I was going through a period since I've been ill where, my softball and football haven't been doing pretty well, but I hit 3 shots to the fence that actually dinked off the fence. If I would have had 1 or 2 more feet, it would have gone over the fence. And let me tell you something, for a woman, in softball, that's hard to do. So I'm getting there. I'm getting my strength back. I'm getting my muscles back and stuff. My hip and back will always be my hip and back, but I'm not going down. I'm going to make sure I'm the A player I used to be. So, but we had a lot of fun this weekend, and I'm helping out a team right now and everything, and still trying to find my home as far as a tournament team, but who knows, this may be it. Maybe all the components aren't there yet. But we also have a flag football doubleheader this Saturday coming up over in the acreage. If you guys like to sponsor or like to sponsor local charities and stuff like that, a lot of times the acreage is doing different things like that, and we play for fun. We play for to raise money for charities and stuff, such as cancers and breast cancers and all sorts of different things and stuff. But we've had 2 weeks off, and I'm jonesing for it. I love my football. I love being able to run and catch the ball and do all sorts of stuff. I love the defense aspect, and we're doing pretty well. We're one of the older teams in the league, and we only have 1 loss so far. So I think that's pretty good for a bunch of old ladies that are playing against 20-year-olds all the time. So but yeah, we have a lot going on. We started airing the TV show and everything, and that's coming up soon. And I didn't even get a chance to watch my own show and anything like that. It's one of those things where I'm so busy with softball and different things and stuff like that I don't even get to see my own. I don't even get to listen to my own radio shows and stuff like that. But why do I want to hear my voice anyways? If Chad isn't here, we usually do. This is the part where I usually say hey to Chad. Chad's not here. I think he has a gig or something going out. So we have an amazing woman here who's sitting here, and she's taking over control. So Dee, how are you?
Good. How are you, Miss Raina?
I'm doing well. I like to see. You're much better looking to look at than Chad.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
try.
You're welcome. How do you like being behind the controls so far?
You know what? It's pretty different, but I really like it. Usually, I'm behind the scenes. I'm doing my thing, but I really like the board. I'm digging it. Like, I was nervous and everything else like that, but been getting some good positive feedback today, so I'm really digging, the board life.
Absolutely. Well, you look like you're doing a good job so far.
Thank you.
And you look natural back there. I think you should hit up the owner and tell him, maybe take a job switch.
Nah, I like my job too. I just add this to my plate. I always like to push myself to the limits to see what I can do until it breaks me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Dee. All right, guys, if you'd like to give us a call, you can call us in at 561-623-9429. I am on the W4CY website, so make sure you web chat me, ask questions, or, write in and stuff like that. And make sure you download the W4CY radio app to listen to all the great programming here at the radio station. And we're not going to have a YouTube, or I don't know how this is going to go, because for some reason my computer is not logging into the online thing, and it's my computer computer, it's not the stations. And so we are on Periscope right now. I'm waving to Periscope people. And if you want to see us live and not just listen to my beautiful voice, but you want to see my pretty face as well, go to Periscope and find Transcendental 13. And I'm going to try to find out if I can find a way to get the video off that to use as a YouTube channel, because if not, you're just going to have an audio only. So let's see how that goes. But let's get into today's show, because there's a lot of I was adopted, and if you follow my social media, tonight's show is on adoption, and I figured we would do the mental and psychological aspects of adopted children, because this is something that's not just in the United States here, but all over the world, and my sister is adopted, and I know I have a few friends that are adopted, and over my young years of being 40, I've ran across many adopted, and we always have a theme. We always have some themes in common, and it's to me, I always thought adoption is a beautiful expression of love. I think that gives people, children, a chance to that maybe have grown up in a horrible situation, or whatever the situation is, why they were given up at that moment. It gives them a chance of life. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story in a little bit, but coming from the way where I would have been, I would not be sitting in here if it wasn't for my wonderful parents who adopted me. And I only see them as my parents. I don't feel that I have any other parents than the ones that raised me. And but they gave me a decent start. They gave me everything that I possibly could want, in the sense of love and understanding and education and everything. And who knows where we would end up. And the sad thing is a lot of children aren't that lucky. And if we always, I'm very grateful for the situations and things that I have had, and I know that my sister is the same way. And there are some children that get the really good draw and everything, and have a nice upbringing and everything, and they get really blessed. And I think we should be grateful for those chances, because it gives a child, like I said, it gives a child love, it gives them a home and stuff. And I think when I look at the statistics, if you look at it in the United States, I think there's 397,000 children without families. And that's a huge number. I mean, it may be small in comparison to 7.4 billion people in the world, but that's almost 400,000 children without families. And imagine you, and I want you to, because how we like to do this show, imagine you put yourself in the situation of being a child. Imagine if you had no family. Imagine if you didn't have parents, and you're a child, you're coming into this world, and it's a big world out there, and you have no one to depend on. You have no one to call mom and dad. You have no one to call maybe brother or sister and stuff. And you're in this strange, maybe place with a lot of other people, or a lot of other children that don't have families as well. And, or you're living, or maybe you had a family and something happened and you're living on the streets now and stuff, and life changes. And it can be like that sometimes for many of these children. And I think in 2016, 118,000 children, were in public foster care awaiting adoption. And that's still a large number of children. And that's by the Department of Health Services back in 2016. And so a lot of people are looking, and if I look at things and I say, well, there's 397,000, but only that are without families, but 118 are actually in foster care and stuff. What happens to the difference of all those different children? And this is why this topic is so important to me. I mean, we talk about many topics here on the show. We talk about many different aspects of life and humanity and everything, but adoption really isn't. And especially with what's going on in the country, with all the fighting going on right now and everything like that, I just want to get away from that, and I want to look at something, because maybe you're listening to the show maybe for the first time, or maybe you've been following me for 5 years, and maybe you're one that's thinking about having a child or having children, and maybe you're thinking about adoption. But if you look in the world today, there are, according to the statistics, there are 17 million orphans without parents all over the world. Now that number jumps drastically from 400,000 in the United States to 17 million. And that's just way too much. And I hope that someday we can get that number reduced to, to as minimal as possible, and I'm a realist. Sometimes I always know that, that it's, maybe that's never going to be zero. I would love it to be zero. We would live in a wonderful place if there was no homeless, if there was no, orphans or anything like that. It'd be a wonderful place to live if we didn't fight over guns and all this other stuff that we fight over all the time, politics and religion and everything. It would be a wonderful world, but our world is the way it is, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But back in 2014, I haven't found a more recent statistic, but back in 2014, 136,000 adoptions in the United States. So if you're kind of calculating the differential, the numbers here and everything like that, you can kind of see that that we have a little bit of an issue, that they say that there's a 58.3% adoption rate, but that doesn't sound right, because if I look at the statistics and stuff, it seems way lower, but only 17% adoption rate in other countries. And, my heart goes out, and maybe that's why some of the more famous people with money, go to other countries and stuff like that and adopt people, because, there's less of an adoption rate. But adoption is tough for families. It really is, because we look at everything and we say, well, one of the things that I've heard throughout my life, and it kind of always bothered me when I was younger, was, when people would say, no, I would never adopt because, I want my own blood. When I have a child, I want them to be my blood. Well, it's the funny thing is I feel like, with my family, they're my blood. And I believe that that's just a mental aspect of your ego getting in the way of seeing the truth of the situation, for you to grasp onto something in order for you to feel whole. And, but adoption can be tough for a lot of us, because I know I've struggled with many situations. I know that my sister has struggled, and every person I've talked to that has had that has been adopted, especially when they're young, have struggled in life. They've struggled mentally, they've struggled emotionally, and even though they could feel loved, they also feel a little bit distant. And and this is what some of the things we're going to talk about, because the distance part affects us. In a minute I'm going to get into a little bit about my story, but I think most of us, and I know a lot of you can agree with me, most of us, that no matter how many people we're around, especially if we're not touched when we're children, and that we don't feel touching and hugging and affection is uncomfortable for us, and not being able to understand, even being surrounded by people who love you and still feeling separated from them. And these are all things that have grown from, that are born and learned from birth when we're young. And I know for me personally, I was a drug baby. My biological parents, well, the dad took off as soon as he heard that that she was pregnant with me, and the biological mom, just did coke, heroin, drank, smoked, did the whole shebang and stuff while she was pregnant with me, and even after, so much more that she never touched me. And so for almost a year straight, until a neighbor came in, because the neighbor said, this baby's always crying and everything, and she just knew something wasn't right. And so she ended up coming over one time and saw that that I hadn't been picked up. I had a flat head in the back and everything, and my diaper hasn't been changed, and I was never touched. I was never changed. I was covered in filth and dirt and everything like that, because the biological mom and stuff like that just cared more for drugs than actually me. And this sets in at such a young mindset, because if you don't believe in the aspect of having people, like, a lot of times we argue, well, where do people start to learn? Where do people start to hear? And we're finding out that even in the womb, the babies hear and start to feel and start to build memory and everything like that. And I believe in that. I really do, because there are things things that I used to know when I was a child that my mom would be like, how does she know that? How does like, and it would amaze her. And it would just be instinctual for me. But these are the things that sometimes we go through. And so, when I look at that, and I was lucky because the day I was taken away from the biological mom to child services, I was actually adopted that day. And that's very, very rare. I mean, talk about, fate intervening and doing what it needs to do in order for me to be where I was supposed to be. But, as soon as I came in, I was adopted, and I was one of the very, very lucky ones. And I appreciate that for 40 years. And every day, I look at my mom, when my dad was around, I looked at him and said, wow, am I so lucky for me to be where I'm at, especially hearing and knowing the story that I came from. But, adoption is difficult for a lot of people because there's a lot of change. Adoption brings change because it brings many different aspects of everything, and basically we're adjusting to a new life. We're looking at different things and we're saying, okay, well, we got to make room not just for ourselves anymore, but for other people, and we have to adjust for the ideas of the other personalities coming in and what we're going to do. And even the infants have to adjust, or if you, especially once someone who has been in foster care for a long time, they start to develop personalities, they start to develop anger and all these different things. And for a lot of people, especially young kids that are old enough to understand what's going on, it's a strange place, it's a strange world, and they may not be able to be able to get comfortable right away. We'll be right back after these messages from the life of Raina.
A message from the life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190, and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. You're listening to Miss Raina on Transcendental Transformation. If you'd like to, share your thoughts or anything, give us a call at 561-623-9429 or web chat me on the w4cy.com website. So we are talking about the mental and psychological aspects of adopted children. And right before I went to break, I was talking about, about how people, have to take time to adjust, and how things can be strange, and especially the older they get, and how we have to adjust for the anger. But I went to a few adoption places just to kind of see, what the process was and see how everything was. And obviously, it's it might be one of the reasons why I never wanted children or anything like that. But when I went there, I really felt bad for the children, because I felt like it was like I went to a supermarket or I went to an auction or something, and all the places that I've gone to over many different states, it was like that. They would parade these kids out, or you'd go in the room and you'd see a bunch of kids and stuff like that, and sometimes they would have them standing there, sometimes they'd have them just in a room playing and stuff, and they'd talk to you about different aspects. But I felt like I was like they were selling me, or they were trying to sell me a child or something. And I thought, and I scratched my head, and I was like, this just can't be right. If I was a child and every time someone walked in and I had to get up against a wall, or I had to go into this room and be stared at by strangers and everything like that, that would make, and then if I wasn't picked, that would make me feel horrible. And if this is the process that we're doing, we're not buying puppies, we're not buying turtles, turtles or ferrets off over in Pet Supermarket or Petco or anything like that, and I feel like some of the agencies do this, and at least the ones that I visit. I can't speak for everyone, and I'm not going to speak for every agency, so I don't want emails saying, well, we're not like that, but the ones that I visited were like that, and I kind of felt sick to my stomach for a little while, because I was like I said, I would be like, this is just, I just think that there's other ways that we can do this process, because like I said, if I had to go through that, I was very lucky to be adopted right away, but if I had to go through that, I would feel horrible. And knowing that I had to, with what I had to go through with my depression and feeling unloved and feeling unwanted already as it is, adding that to the thing, I can understand why a lot of adopted children struggle with many different aspects of life. And I see this as a form of shallowness, and I'm going to be a little blunt there and stuff like that, because that's just the way I am. You know that by now, right? And but I see it as a little bit of shallowness. I know there's I'm going to use one of my no words, but I think that they believe that they're doing it with good intentions, or maybe not, but I see it as a little form of shallowness, because we select people on even babies now, even having your own. You can select a child based on age, race, or not race, age, gender. I mean, all these different things. You can start changing your child's features to whatever you want. It's like made to order. It's like, it doesn't even have to be. Dee's shaking her head over there like, no, and it's true like that, right? Have you ever encountered that yet?
I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty gross. I mean, being a child was born with a disability, like, I think my disability made me who I am.
Absolutely.
Why would you want to alter something? I don't. Everybody thinks disabilities and how you are born, or whatever, is a sign of weakness. I honestly think that if I didn't have my disability, I would be a very mean and snobby person, just because my attitude is just like, I'm very aware of how I am, and I feel like if I didn't have my disability, I might have been snooty. And I thank God every day that I am the way that I am. And I do agree with you. I think it's disgusting how you line up. Are you serious? Like, they just line up?
Yes, some of the places I went to, yes, they pull them out, like almost I felt like I was in a police station in one of them, where they lined the children up against the wall.
Oh my God!
And I felt bad. I was sitting there. I was like, this is the process, and I go, you got to be kidding me. And the look on my face, I was just horrified, because I saw these kids line up like as if like we did in school. Like, oh, here's another. Here's another, here's more people, strangers coming in, and we got to do this. I'm not going to get picked. And you could see like it was more of a chore for them than anything.
I could only imagine seeing the devastation on those children's faces, because you got to imagine how many times have they been lined up and they weren't chosen.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel for them, because knowing the way I am, I would not have been chosen. Yeah. People would have thought that I was more of a chore than a pleasure.
Yes.
Because of the way that I am. And I want to get into being an advocate for being with disabled people, just because I feel like they just, people that are, I'm going to use air quotes right now, different.
Yes.
I feel like they look more as a chore than as a pleasure.
And that's what happens, the same thing as with adopted children as well. And I hate the word, I mean, you're not familiar with my show, but I hate the word disability, because I think mentally that prepares somebody for like, oh, this is your life and you can't do this, because the word disability means you can't, like, it almost means like you can't. And to me, we all have challenges. Mm-hmm. And I believe the same thing that you do. Our challenges make us who we are. They make us stronger. And, and we wouldn't be the people that we are without them.
Exactly. My mom made it very aware that she was harder on me than my brother and my sister. And I asked her one day why. She's like, because if I wasn't harder on you, you would have been lazy and you wouldn't be the person that you are today. And, I thank God that my mom and my grandpa and my grandma and my sister, they did not baby me at all. And I thank God every day for it, because if it wasn't for them, who knows what I would be. I'm not one of those that like to collect disability and sit on my butt and do a bunch of nothing. nothing.
Absolutely.
And I hate when people are like, you're just an inspiration. Why? You do that every single day.
Absolutely.
Why are you not an inspiration, but I am? Like, I can't tell you how many times I go to the club or I go out line dancing and people just come up to me and be like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody like you is out here. I'm like, human?
Yeah,
You mean human?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Thank you. I mean, what do you say at that point? Like, you're not going to start drama. You're just going to be like, thanks. In the back of your mind, like, here we go again.
It is. It gets like that, and that's the thing that I was saying. People do that with all the gender, or I mean, with all the way people look. They can fix the eyes, the hair, and everything like that. And to me, we're creating a society that is entitled to, if we don't get exactly what we want, and that's why we fight all the time. And it's the same with adopted children and everything like that, because I mean, we fight over everything because we create an idea that we deserve everything, perfect to us.
Yes.
And that's not life.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think, take a challenge. See what you can rise above. Because if you don't challenge yourself, you're going to be stuck in the same old norm day in and day out. That's where I was. I was just stuck, and then I decided I'm going to do this. I've never been to a rock concert. Dean made me go. He said, these are tickets, go, have fun. I had the time of my life. This is going to be my third year going.
Oh, good for you.
I love rock more than anything. I've been just trying to challenge myself day in and day out and just trying to be the best possible person in this ugly world that we live in. Spread joy, not hate.
Absolutely. Perfect way to say it. So, it's, and that's the thing that, what's going on is we like to take the cute puppy, and we want the cute puppy and we want to adopt it. We want the cute child and we want to adopt it. We want to, we want all these different things. We want so many, there are so many wonderful kids out there, everybody, that, that deserve, love and compassion and a good family and health and all the things that I had. I mean, I don't, I look at it and I'm career driven. I it could be one of the many reasons why I don't want children and stuff. But if I ever came to that point, I would absolutely adopt. And even, it would be hands down. And that, because I know the amount that I went through in order for me to understand, like, the impact it has on these children. And and there's so many wonderful kids that just don't get adopted. I mean, then when they age out, and there's 20,000, according to the statistics that I was looking at, there's above 20,000 children that age out, that just get, okay, you're 18 now, see you later, and that's the way it goes.
So that's accurate. When they turn 18 years old, they have to leave the home, correct? And they're kind of just out in the world,
yes,
spending for themselves. Like, that's an accurate thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that now things have changed. I don't know the process too much on that, but I'm sure that they just don't. Kick them out, say, see you later. Here's your. I'm sure they probably try to set them up with a job and different things.
Thank God for that, because you're in this home, and this is the only thing you've ever known, and then you turn 18, and I would hope that human decency and compassion would kick in, and they would try to help you, not, because at that point, sink or swim.
Yeah, well, it's like that in life too, and that's what I was saying. It's, you have, if you have over 100,000 children waiting to be adopted, from over 3 to the age of 21 or 18, whatever it is, this is way too many people, and or way too many children to do this. And so, we got about 20 minutes left and stuff. So I want to talk about some of the psychological issues that happen with this, with going on, because one of the biggest issues with children that are adopted is loss. And you don't think about that too much, because you think, oh, if they get adopted, oh, they have a family now, they have all these different things. And, and loss is actually one of the biggest things. I always have felt a sense of loss. I always did. Even my sister had, every adopted person that I ran into that I sat down, I interviewed, I said, hey, would you like, because I've done that. I'm like that. And I sat down and I would say, hey, I heard you're adopted. Do you mind if I talk to you for a few minutes? And there are certain questions that I always ask. And the first thing that they always say is, I don't know why, but I always feel like there's something lost, or I feel like a sense of loss. And, and what that is hitting on is the fear of abandonment. I mean, right away, because you don't realize your actions. And maybe if you're a child, maybe if you're an adult, and maybe you've given up a child due to circumstances. And look, I'm not judging you, whatever you did, whatever people do, I don't judge. You got to do what you got to do for your life lessons, and it's meant to be certain ways. But but for the child, they, when that transference is broken and they're passed on to a foster care or another, there's that bond that dissipates, and that fear of ultimate abandonment comes in, and the loss of biological, genetic, all that stuff, issues of holding on, letting go, it all comes into play. They all sit there, and I know so many of us, and even I struggled with this. Believe it or not, people laugh at me because they're like, no, you were never this way, Miss Raina. And I'm like, yes, I was. When I was really young, I had a hard time with friends because it was like this tug of war. It was like when I had friends around, I didn't want them, but because I don't know why, I was afraid of them. I was afraid that they were going to abandon me. I was afraid that I wasn't good enough. And then all of a sudden, but then at the same time, if I thought that they were going to go or leave or something like that, I didn't want them to leave. Or if I thought I was going to lose their friendship, I would jump over and do whatever I can to keep the friendship or the relationship. And, it was just horrible. It was like this nasty tug of war. And, I used to even have dreams of being given up. And and it was I'm assuming for my parents it was very troublesome and worrisome, because I would bust out, and I remember these dreams, especially when I was young. I would be having these dreams, and all of a sudden I'd wake up, and it was always the same set of dreams where I was at some place and someone would come and pick me up and take me away from, I guess, the people that my biological family or whatever, and and then I would be crying and stuff, and I'd wake up, and my parents would be like, they told me, they were like, we always was concerned because we always wondered how you knew way before you were even adopted, how you knew that. You just had this instinct of someone taking you away, someone picking you up and taking you away, and that's exactly what happened. And and whatever the transference is, whatever your story is, if you were adopted or anything like that, whatever your story is, I guarantee you go through some form of loss. It's the rejection of placement. It's the rejection of the idea that you're good enough. It creates the insecurity of the ego. It starts to build the ego that says, hey, the victim inside us. I always talk about the victim and survivor part of the ego, and it creates that rejection. It creates that victim inside of us that says, hey, you're not good enough. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve a family. They're just going to leave you too. And it kind of just, it plays that, it plays that psychological aspect, and there goes the self-esteem. It crashes, because why should we have self-esteem if the people that were supposed to love us don't? And if you don't think that's ingrained inside your head immediately, especially with the way life is. I mean, like I tell you, how many times do I give you examples of Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and all these things or whatever that tell you, oh, all these situational ideas of how life is supposed to be, but it's not like that. And so when we're planted these ideas that life is supposed to be sunshine and rainbows and your life isn't, then you grow into it. You grow into the idea that, hey, I'm not good enough, so everything is going to be rejection. Everything, is going to be that form of, of loss and fear and abandonment, because, I'm just not going to do it. And what does fear turn into? Anger. Fear always turns into anger, because you become angry at the sense that, because fear has to do something. Fear is a form of energy that has to move, that has to create its way. And usually a lot of times fear, when it sinks, it stagnates. And how does anger come about? Stagnant energy. It stagnates until it resonates, until it explodes. And we don't understand why we're angry. We don't understand. And if you are a parent and you've adopted a child, especially an older people and you have trouble with anger issues, that's because they're dealing with the sense of abandonment. They're dealing with the fear of loss, that they were either given in their mind, they thought that they were tossed away, because I used to believe that. I used to really think that I wasn't good enough for the people who had me, that that they didn't want me. It wasn't until I got older that I realized, wow, what a lucky break I got, because I don't know where I would be if that was my family. The family that I have is my family. I see no other family than this. And my mom used to ask me all the time the one question. So what if your mom came up to me, and I said, no, you're my mom. If some lady knocked at the door, or some guy and lady knocked at the door and said, hi, we're your parents, I would say, no, these are my parents, and shut the door, because I don't see any other parents than that. And they have been there for me in every aspect of my life. And to me, that deserves respect, and that should be the same way for the rest of people. That when you go into adoption, you're going to have you have to prepare yourself for challenges in these areas. You got to prepare yourself for the chaos that comes with it, until the child understands that it's safe, it's loved, and they find a way to tame the ego. Because we talk about ego like every week on this, and you're probably like, oh, here's Miss Raina talking about the ego again. But it plays such a vital role in everything we think and do. That's why we're fighting over. That's why we fight all the time. I mean, I haven't even turned on social media, because I'm tired of hearing about the guns. I mean, it's a sad situation, but I'm so tired of hearing people fight over everything and justification. And this is because of the ego. This is because the victim inside us says we have to be right in order for this to happen. And this is the same thing. And so whether it's an idea that we're accustomed to, or whether it's an idea that we think we're not good enough, or self-esteem, or the anger comes out, this happens. And shame and guilt are a part of it. I used to feel shame all the time. And then when I was bullied, it reinforced it, because, we've had shows on bullying, and I've told you my story about, I was bullied from such a young age all the way to, my senior year of high school. I mean, like almost every day of all the years, to the point where I developed anxiety, because every time I thought of my childhood, my brain connected the dots and put me right back in those situations. And I was like, and so, I developed this sense of shame. And a lot of people that are adopted do. I'm not, again, it goes hand in hand. Well, I deserve, again, I'm going to use one of my no words, but you understand. Well, I deserve the bad. I'm ashamed because I'm different. I didn't get the luck of having a, blood family. So, this isn't my real family. And, and they go defensive. They're very defensive, because, they're trying to salvage who they are. The brain works very funny, in case you don't understand that, because the victim and survivor, I'm not going to go into the ego and the id and the super ego and stuff, because a lot of people don't understand that. So I break the ego down in just the victim and survivor, because we know what a survivor is, we know what a victim is. But that's what it does. The victim in us beats us up, and then right when we're drowning, the survivor picks us up and says, no, you can't do that, you can't drown, and then lets you go for a little bit until you start drowning, and then picks you back up. And this is the ping pong match. And this is why it's so difficult for many of us to do that. Personal identity is something that adopted children have to find. It's like the missing info. I remember the biggest question. I mean, we all ask ourselves, who am I? We all do, and the thing that it is that, this is an added piece, because it's not just who am I, but it's like, where did I come from? Why was I given up? Why, all these who, what, when, where, why questions that have to be answered in order for you to find out who you are. You're missing info on your birthplace. Maybe you don't know your nationality. Maybe you don't know all these different things. And I used to think I was Mexican and Italian, because that's what my family was, and I never questioned it. And even when my dad said, oh yeah, even though I knew something was a little different, but once it was different, once I found out that I was adopted, I said, well, one of my first questions was, well, what nationality am I really then? And, I come to find out that I was half German and half Argentinian. So it's, so it kind of put pieces together. And personal identity is something that you have to find. And remember, people, the things that you're into, or the things that you're about, doesn't make you who you are. You're not going to find yourself by saying, oh, well, I'm this, and because I believe in this is makes me who I am. It's just not going to happen like that. So when I say personal identity, you have to find out who you are in the sense of self, and that takes many years, but it takes a lot of work. And especially for people that are adopted, you already feel like you're behind the line. You feel like you're trying to run a race with someone putting a bag behind you of maybe 100-pound rock. Well, everybody else doesn't have that. And and if you allow that to take place, then what's going to happen is you're going to fall into that anger. You're going to fall into that shame and rejection, and then erratic behavior is going to create. And when your child starts acting erratically and the behavior starts to become unglued, then that means that something's going on there. One of the things when I was growing up is I was in a Catholic a Catholic school, grade school, and I was called the devil child. I was called the problem child. They thought that I was really, they thought I was really slow and I needed special attention, and something was wrong with me because I would act out, and I was hyperactive and had dyslexia. We didn't know what dyslexia was back then. We didn't know what ADHD, and I people, we use these things as too many crutches. So just because you have something, don't use it as a crutch. But we didn't have these things, so they labeled you as a problem instead of saying, okay, well, maybe something's going on with the child, and trying to figure out why the child is acting this way. And with adopted parents, I know there are many parents that get frustrated with adopted children and give them back to foster care because they don't know how to deal with it. And this is the problem that we're having. We are prepared in school for jobs. That's all we do. We prepare you for a job, but we don't prepare you to life. We don't prepare how to find yourself, how to handle your challenges, how to deal with things, how to deal with others. And this is why we are in a society where we fight over every little thing, and we think that, if you don't believe in what I think or anything like that, you're an idiot. And we're so quick to give away things nowadays if it's not perfect. And life just doesn't happen like that. It's not going to happen. But one of the last couple of things I'm going to talk about is intimacy and relationships. I talked about touchy-feely, hugging, all that stuff is a no-no for us, or sometimes it really stresses us out. Even to this day, I'd rather wave to somebody than hug them. But I force myself still to this day. I say, okay, when I catch myself doing it, I say, nope, and I walk up to them and I hug them, and it still feels a little off for me. And, you guys know I love myself. My life is great in many aspects and everything like that, but the mind still wants to work and still remember, because remember, there's all these different ideas in the mind that wants to place and that victim is just waiting. But the fear of getting too close, you will self-sabotage every single relationship that you have ever come into. I mean, you know it. If you are listening, you are adopted, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have self-sabotaged mostly every relationship, especially when you were younger. Maybe you're dealing with it a little bit, better now, but you will, because why? That fear again, that fear of loss. I mean, the fear of loss is so great in adopted children that a lot of times, we will do everything. Like I said, with my friends, what did I do? I wanted my friends, but at the same time I didn't, because hey, if they were going to hurt me, if they were just going to leave on me and reinforce the idea that I don't deserve people, then that's the idea. And so we bounce back and forth between relationships, and this is a destructive pattern in your life. life. And if you think that nobody loves you because you can't hold a relationship, but this is on us. We have to take responsibility for ourselves and our ideas and the way we think and the way we react to something. I always tell you, and this is important, when you first emotionally react, your first response is emotionally reactive to any idea, you've already lost the battle, because you're acting out of victim or survivor. You're acting out of ego due to fear. The moment you react to something, the moment someone says something that you don't agree with and you're just ready to jump on them because they're stupid and you're not, you know everything, or someone gets too close and you're going to push them away, or whatever the situation is, you're already lost the game, because you're acting out of conditioning rather than your conscious thought. And so you have to start changing those patterns. You have to allow yourself to catch yourself and say, you know what, hey, this is uncomfortable for me. So I'm going to force myself slowly. I'm going to start forcing myself. What can I do first that maybe can be my first baby step? So if relationships are troublesome for us, well, then what's the first thing? Maybe I don't want to go jump into dating right away. Well, maybe join a chat room or join something other than whatever that one is where you flip the people back and forth. That just
Tinder.
Is it Tinder?
Yeah.
I never go on.
My best friend he was on Tinder, and he's like, oh yeah, but I agree with you. I think society has also made it very hard. It holds us to what an expectation is.
Yes.
Expected and not, but that makes sense. My best friend, he lost his mom at a very young age, and his dad wasn't around, and his brother had to basically raise him.
Yes.
And I would be like, you need a hug? And he'd be like, no.
Yeah.
He just thinks it's so weird that I want to give him a hug. And I was like, I love you. And he thinks that's weird too. I know how he feels, but actually saying it is just like...
Well, it makes us vulnerable because there, from a whenever we have a sense of loss, that victim in us, especially if it's planted there at an early age, it's waiting to grab a hold of us, and it grabs a hold of us so quickly that a lot of times it makes us perceive that we're not worthy of something. And so even when you're trying to love him, until he comes to a point, a situation where he's ready to move on past that, he's going to be like that his whole life.
Oh, I hug him anyways.
Good for you.
I do.
Good,
I let him know. Like, he'll say
Good.
something slick to me, and I'll just be like, you need a hug. And he's like, no, I don't. And he'll just stand there like, God, can she just get off of me? I was like, just embrace the love, bro.
Yes.
And, he won't say it back. I think we've been best friends for a while, and he said, I love you once to me. And that was the other day, because he hurt my feelings when he said something. And he's like, I love you. I was like, why? He's like, don't make me say it again. I was like, all right, I won't push my luck. So now I'm like, I love you. He's like, yeah. And then I hug him. I don't care if he likes it or not. You're going to stand there until I'm done.
No, good for you. But that right there, that example is the prime example of what I'm talking about. Like, they don't know, and even me when I was there, we don't know how to show our emotions because we were never shown how to. And so it's that missing component. So when we do mess up, we'll make a comment, but it's such a strain in our ego that we'll be like, oh, don't make me say it again, or you heard me, or whatever, and we'll walk away.
Yeah, my sister's like, you have to realize who raised him. And I'm like, you're right. And I just have to take a step back, and I just be like, listen, you're being a jerk, but I love you anyways. And I'm going to go to my room, and I'm going to separate myself from you at this point in time. And then I'll give him a hug. He's like, are you serious with this hugging crap again? I'm like, sorry, I like to show affection. I will no longer love you. JK.
That's too bad. But, I'm proud of you for that. So let's wrap up the show, because I know we got a couple minutes here. And, but, people, if you're, I'm big into therapy, that, or seeing a life coach or a spiritual life coach or a therapist or whatever, start learning to explore who you are. Start, finding a sense of self is so important for you guys. I mean, it only comes from you. You have to know that, one of the greatest lessons for someone who gets adopted is to learn to find home within itself. And so I'm going to leave you with that, and I hope if you didn't hear it, then rewind the tape or rewind the feed and stuff like that. But, to learn to find home in itself. That's the greatest lesson for you guys. All right, everybody, that's tonight's show. If you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com. Sign up for the newsletter to receive VIP access to the website and special guest offers when we do have guests. Email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. Make sure you visit the w4cy.com website, and remember to always believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a great day.